The ultimatum. In the year 2157, an alien transmission reached Earth, shattering the illusion of solitude in the cosmos. The message, broadcast across every frequency and display, carried a chilling ultimatum. People of Earth, you stand at the brink of annihilation. Your only hope for survival is to surrender unconditionally to the Zorian Empire. You have one Earth rotation to comply. The transmission ignited a global firestorm of panic and confusion. World leaders, setting aside long-standing rivalries, gathered for an emergency summit to discuss the alien threat. The Zorian demands were clear: total subjugation and the end of human autonomy. In the summit chambers, heated debates raged between those advocating for negotiation and those calling for defiance. "We cannot bow to these invaders," declared President Alyssa Novak of the United Nations. "Our freedom is not negotiable." Dr. Kenji Sato, a xenolinguist, pored over the Zorian transmission, searching for hidden meanings. "There's more to this than mere conquest," he concluded. "The Zorians see us as a threat, a potential rival. They fear what we might become." As the debates continued, a grim realization settled over the assembled leaders. The Zorians had not come to Earth seeking equals, but to preempt the rise of a future challenger. The choice before humanity was stark: submit to alien rule or fight for the right to determine their own destiny. In research facilities worldwide, scientists worked feverishly to unravel the secrets behind the Zorian technology. If Earth was to have any chance of resisting, they needed to close the gap in capabilities, and fast. Dr. Eleanor Paxton, a brilliant aerospace engineer, made a pivotal breakthrough. Analyzing the Zorian transmission, she discovered a vulnerability in their communications network. "We might not be able to match their firepower," she said, "but we can disrupt their coordination." As the deadline approached, humanity stood at a crossroads. The Zorian ultimatum had intended to divide and conquer, to force Earth to capitulation. But instead, it had forged a new sense of unity among the disparate nations. Faced with an existential threat, old enmities fell away, replaced by a shared determination to protect their home. In the final hours before the Zorian deadline, President Novak addressed the world. "Today we stand together as one people, one Earth. We will not be cowed by threats or ultimatums. We will not trade our freedom for false promises of safety. If the Zorians want our planet, they will have to fight for every inch of it." As the transmission ended, a sense of quiet resolve settled across the globe. Humanity had made its choice. They would not go quietly into the night. They would rage against the dying of the light. The Zorian war machine was coming, but Earth would be ready to meet it head-on. In research labs and factories, in command centers and training grounds, a species prepared for the fight of its life. The road ahead would be long and bloody, but one thing was certain: humanity would face it united. The ultimatum had been delivered, and Earth's response was defiance. The battle for the future had begun. Humanity united. In the wake of the Zorian ultimatum, a wave of solidarity swept across Earth. Past grievances and ideological differences seemed to melt away as humanity confronted the specter of alien domination. President Novak's defiant words had struck a chord in the hearts of people worldwide. From the streets of New York to the villages of Rwanda, from the favelas of Rio to the high-rises of Shanghai, humanity stood as one. Flags of Earth, hastily designed and mass-produced, fluttered from windows and balconies, a symbol of a planet united. Governments poured unprecedented resources into scientific research and weapons development. The Zorian threat had catalyzed a technological renaissance as the brightest minds from every nation worked together to unlock the secrets of advanced propulsion, energy weapons, and defensive systems. In the UN Security Council, the veto powers put aside their differences to draft a unified strategy. "We must fight not as Americans, Russians, or Chinese," declared the Secretary General, "but as humans, as defenders of Earth." The Zorian ultimatum had made no mention of diplomacy, but Earth left no stone unturned. Diplomats versed in exolinguistics broadcast messages of peace and coexistence on every frequency, in every conceivable format. We seek not conflict but understanding, they transmitted. Let us meet as equals, not as conqueror and conquered. Their overtures were met with ominous silence. The Zorians, it seemed, had no interest in dialogue. Their ships continued to amass at the edges of the solar system, a looming reminder of the threat Earth faced. In the face of this intransigence, Earth's preparations took on a fevered urgency. Factories churned out fighter craft and missiles around the clock. Millions enlisted in the newly formed Earth Defense Force, ready to lay down their lives for their planet. Dr. Paxton and her team worked tirelessly to exploit the vulnerability in the Zorian communications network. If we can disrupt their ability to coordinate, she explained, we can level the playing field. Buy ourselves some time. As the world armed itself for war, there were those who questioned the path of confrontation. Surely there must be a way to coexist, they argued. Is war our only option? But the memory of the Zorian ultimatum was seared into the global consciousness. The aliens had shown their hand, and it was a fist, not an open palm. To trust in their mercy now would be to invite subjugation. And so Earth prepared, a planet united by the specter of a common foe. Farmers and factory workers, scientists and soldiers, all bent their efforts towards the coming conflict. In bunkers and bases, in laboratories and launch sites, a species readied itself for the fight of its life. The Zorians had expected a fractured world, a planet ripe for conquest. But as their ships entered the solar system, they found a humanity united, a civilization ready to defend its right to exist. The road ahead would be dark and perilous, but Earth would walk it together. As the first Zorian ships crossed the orbit of Neptune, Earth stood ready. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and a species would fight as one. On the eve of war, President Novak addressed a world on edge. We did not choose this fight, but now that it is upon us, we will not shrink from it. We will stand together, we will fight together, and together we will prevail. For Earth, for humanity, for our right to chart our own destiny among the stars. The gathering storm. As the Zorian fleet entered the solar system, the magnitude of the threat became clear. Their ships, sleek and menacing, dwarfed anything Earth had ever constructed. In the command centers of Earth, generals and strategists watched the alien armadas approach with growing unease. But Earth was not content to wait for the hammer to fall. Even as the Zorians assembled their forces, human strike teams launched daring raids on the alien vanguard. Equipped with Dr. Paxton's communications disruption technology, these guerrilla fighters sowed chaos and confusion among the Zorian ranks. Captain Mikhail Petrov led one such raid. His team, a multinational force of elite soldiers, infiltrated a Zorian supply ship in the asteroid belt. In the cramped alien corridors, they planted explosives and sabotaged systems, crippling the vessel before slipping away into the void. These strikes, though small in scale, bought Earth precious time. The Zorians, unused to such audacious tactics, were forced to slow their advance, to guard their flanks against these hit-and-run attacks. But the Zorians adapted quickly. Their response was swift and brutal. In the first major engagement of the war, a Zorian battleship caught an Earth destroyer group near the moons of Jupiter. The alien weapons, advanced beyond human reckoning, tore through the Earth ship's defenses like paper. The loss was a stark reminder of the technological gulf between humanity and their adversaries. In the aftermath, as rescue teams searched for survivors among the wreckage, a grim realization set in. Earth might be united, but unity alone would not be enough. In research facilities across the planet, scientists worked around the clock to reverse engineer captured Zorian technology. Every raid, every skirmish brought new opportunities to learn, to adapt, to level the playing field. Dr. Anaya Singh, a brilliant xenobiologist, made a pivotal discovery. Analyzing Zorian biological samples, she uncovered a critical weakness in their physiology. They evolved in a high-gravity environment, she explained. Their bodies can't handle sudden changes in acceleration. This knowledge became the cornerstone of a new human tactic. Earth pilots, their ships modified to exploit this weakness, engaged the Zorians in high-speed, high-G maneuvers. The aliens, unable to match these sudden shifts, found themselves outflanked and outmaneuvered. These victories, hard-won and costly, gave humanity a glimmer of hope. They showed that the Zorians, for all their technological might, were not invincible. They could be outsmarted, outfought, beaten. But the Zorians were far from defeated. As more of their ships poured into the solar system, the scale of the conflict escalated. Earth fleets clashed with alien armadas in the rings of Saturn, in the skies of Mars, in the heart of the asteroid belt. Losses mounted on both sides as the toll of war made itself felt. Earth cities, once bustling metropolises, became silent ghosts as their populations evacuated to underground shelters. On the front lines, soldiers grappled with the horrors of a conflict unlike any in human history. Through it all, Earth's resolve never wavered. Every setback was met with determination, every loss with a renewed commitment to the fight. In the face of an implacable foe, humanity had found a strength they never knew they possessed. As the war entered its next phase, Earth stood battered but unbroken. The Zorian advance had been slowed, but not halted. The fate of humanity would be decided in the battles to come, in the courage and ingenuity of those who fought for Earth's future. The storm had gathered, and humanity stood in its path, united and unbowed. Come what may, they would face it together. For Earth, there could be no surrender, no retreat. There could only be victory or oblivion. Unlikely alliances. As the war against the Zorians dragged on, fault lines began to appear in the alien coalition. Not all of the races under the Zorian banner were there by choice. Some, like the insectoid Kralti and the amphibious Marota, were vassal species subjugated by the Zorians long ago. Earth's intelligence services, working with their counterparts from allied nations, began to reach out to these disaffected groups. Through covert channels, they offered a tantalizing promise. Help us defeat the Zorians and gain your freedom in the process. These overtures were met with initial mistrust. The vassal species had long suffered under Zorian rule, and the idea of aligning with another potential overlord was met with skepticism. But as the human emissaries shared stories of Earth's own struggles against tyranny, of the ideals of liberty and self-determination, some among the vassal races began to listen. They saw in humanity a reflection of their own desire for freedom, a kindred spirit in the fight against oppression. The Kralti were the first to break ranks. In a daring prison break, a team of human special forces aided Kralti rebels in freeing their imprisoned queen. The Zorian response was brutal, but the damage was done. Inspired by their queen's liberation, Kralti workers across the fleet began to sabotage Zorian systems to feed intel to human forces. The Marota followed suit soon after. In a secret meeting on a frozen moon of Neptune, Marota representatives signed a pact with Earth diplomats. In exchange for a guarantee of autonomy after the war, the Marota agreed to share their advanced shield technology with Earth. These alliances, forged in the fires of war, began to shift the balance of power. With Kralti intel and Marota tech, Earth forces were able to strike deeper into Zorian-held territory, to disrupt their supply lines and communications. Joint human Kralti strike teams, operating behind enemy lines, became the stuff of legend. They hit where the Zorians were weakest, fading into the shadows before the enemy could respond. Captain Petrov, the hero of the asteroid belt raids, led one of the most audacious of these missions. With a mixed team of human commandos and Kralti warriors, he infiltrated a key Zorian command post on the moon of Titan. In a lightning raid, Petrov's team captured the base's commander and seized control of its communications array. From this hub, they broadcast a message of defiance across the Zorian network, a rallying cry to all those who dreamed of freedom. The Marota shield technology, meanwhile, was a game-changer for Earth's warships. Equipped with these advanced defenses, human vessels could now go toe-to-toe with their Zorian counterparts, evening the odds in space combat. The tide of war was beginning to turn, but the Zorians were far from beaten. In retaliation for the Titan raid, they launched a devastating assault on Earth's lunar colonies. The battle was fierce and costly, a reminder of the lengths the Zorians would go to crush any resistance. But even in the face of such brutality, Earth and its new allies held firm. They had tasted the possibility of victory, and they would not let it slip from their grasp. As news of the Zorian setbacks spread, more vassal species began to waver in their allegiance. The whispers of rebellion, once faint and scattered, grew into a chorus of defiance. Earth stood at the center of this growing alliance, a beacon of hope in a galaxy long dominated by Zorian tyranny. In the unity of diverse species, in the shared struggle for liberty, a new power was rising. The Zorians had once dismissed humanity as a primitive, divided race. But as Earth and its allies struck blow after blow against the Zorian war machine, a new truth emerged. In the face of a common threat, humanity had not only united, but had become the unifying force for an entire galaxy. The war was far from over. The Zorians were wounded, but still dangerous. Earth and its allies would need every ounce of courage and cooperation to see the struggle through to the end. But in the forging of these unlikely alliances, in the birth of a united front against tyranny, the seeds of a new galactic order had been sown. Whatever the outcome of the war, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. The tide turns. The Battle of Titan marked a turning point in the war against the Zorians. The capture of the key command post and the broadcast of the message of defiance had dealt a heavy blow to the Zorian morale. For the first time, the myth of their invincibility had been shattered. Emboldened by this victory, Earth and its allies went on the offensive. The Marauder shield technology, now fully integrated into human warships, allowed Earth fleets to engage the Zorians on equal terms. The once one-sided space battles became fierce, closely fought engagements. In the asteroid belt, Captain Petrov and his joint human Kralty strike team launched a series of daring raids on Zorian supply depots. The Kralty's intimate knowledge of Zorian logistics, combined with human tactical ingenuity, proved a lethal combination. Zorian ships found themselves running low on critical supplies, their operations hampered by constant disruptions. On the ground, human forces employed new tactics inspired by their insectoid allies. Like the Kralty, they learned to strike swiftly and fade away, to use the terrain to their advantage. The Zorians, used to stand-up fights and overwhelming firepower, struggled to adapt to this new kind of warfare. The Zorian casualties began to mount, their advances stalling on multiple fronts. In the halls of their power, the Zorian leadership was in disarray. The vassal uprisings and the stubborn human resistance had thrown their carefully laid plans into chaos. Sensing weakness, more of the subjugated species rose in rebellion. The Vorax, a fierce warrior race, overthrew their Zorian overseers and pledged their allegiance to the human cause. Their shock troops, renowned for their ferocity in close-quarters combat, became a feared presence on the battlefield. The Zorians, desperate to regain the initiative, launched a massive counterattack on Mars. They hoped to seize control of the Red Planet's vital resources and use it as a staging ground for an assault on Earth. The battle was brutal, the Zorian forces fighting with the desperation of a cornered beast. But the Allied forces held firm. The Marauder shields absorbed the brunt of the Zorian assault, while human and Vorax troops fought with unyielding courage. In the skies above, Kralta pilots engaged in daring dogfights, their agility and cunning a match for the Zorians' technological edge. After weeks of bloody fighting, the Zorians were forced to retreat. They left behind a planet scarred by war, but also a powerful symbol of the Alliance's resolve. On the battlefields of Mars, the unity of the Allied forces had been forged in blood and fire. The victory on Mars marked a sea change in the course of the war. Across the galaxy, oppressed species looked to Earth and its allies as a beacon of hope. The Zorian Empire, once thought unassailable, was crumbling from within. But the Zorians were not yet defeated. They still controlled vast swathes of the galaxy, and their military machine, though battered, remained formidable. They clung to their conquests with the stubbornness of a tyrant's grip. For Earth and its allies, the fight was far from over. The road ahead would be long and perilous, the cost in blood and treasure high. But they had seen the tide of war turn in their favor, and they were determined to see it through to the end. In the command centers and war rooms, plans were drawn up for the next phase of the campaign. The Allied forces would press their advantage, striking at the heart of the Zorian Empire. They would liberate the oppressed, rally the downtrodden, and build a coalition to shake the very foundations of Zorian power. The Zorians had once sought to conquer Earth, to crush the human spirit beneath the heel of their empire. But in their hubris, they had underestimated the strength of human resolve, the power of unity in the face of tyranny. Now, as the tide of war turned, it was the Zorians who found themselves on the defensive, their empire besieged from without and within. And it was Earth and its allies who were on the march, united in their determination to forge a new galactic order, one founded on the principles of freedom and self-determination. The end of the war was not yet in sight, but for the first time, victory seemed possible. In the unity of diverse species and the shared struggle against oppression, the seeds of hope had taken root, and no Zorian force, no matter how powerful, could uproot them. The final push. With the tide of war turning in their favor, Earth and its allies prepared for the final push against the Zorian Empire. The strategy was bold and audacious. Simultaneous assaults on key Zorian strongholds across the galaxy, a coordinated effort to shatter the Empire's power base and liberate the remaining subjugated species. At the heart of this plan was the assault on Zoria Prime, the Zorian homeworld, and the seat of their imperial power. Intelligence reports suggested that the Zorian leadership, rattled by recent defeats, had withdrawn to this heavily fortified planet. A decisive victory here could bring the war to a swift conclusion. The Allied forces gathered for the assault, a vast armada comprising ships from a dozen species. Human battlecruisers, sleek and deadly, stood alongside the organic Mirota vessels, pulsing with living energy. Krelty swarm ships darted between the larger craft, their insectoid pilots eager for the fight. Leading the assault was Admiral Elena Ivanova, a seasoned human commander known for her tactical brilliance and unwavering resolve. Under her guidance, the Allied fleet slipped through the Zorian defenses, using Krelty stealth technology to approach Zoria Prime undetected. As they entered orbit, the Zorian response was swift and ferocious. Planetary defenses lit up the void, while Zorian warships swarmed to meet the invaders. The battle that ensued was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, a titanic clash of advanced technologies and unyielding wills. In the thick of the fighting, the Vorax shock troops proved their worth. Transported to the surface by Mirota landing craft, they engaged the Zorian defenders in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Their ferocity and tenacity turned the tide on the ground, allowing human and allied forces to establish a foothold on the planet. Above, the space battle raged with unabated fury. The Zorian ships, though outnumbered, fought with the desperation of cornered beasts. They lashed out with advanced weapons, seeking to break the Allied lines and disrupt the ground assault. But the Allies had learned from their earlier encounters. The Mirota shields held firm against the Zorian onslaught, while human and Krelty ships used their speed and agility to outmaneuver the enemy. Slowly, inexorably, they whittled down the Zorian fleet. On the planet's surface, Captain Petrov led a daring raid on the Imperial Palace. His mixed team of human commandos and Krelty infiltrators breached the palace defenses, engaging the Zorian Guard in close-quarters combat. Their objective: to capture the Zorian Emperor and force a surrender. The fighting within the palace was intense and chaotic, a deadly game of cat and mouse through ornate halls and crumbling corridors. Petrov and his team fought with skill and determination, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. In the end, it was Petrov himself who confronted the Emperor in his throne room. The Zorian leader, once a figure of fear and awe, now cowered before the human commando. With his guard defeated and his palace in ruins, the Emperor had no choice but to surrender. The news of the Emperor's capture spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, Zorian forces laid down their arms, their will to fight extinguished. The vassal species, long oppressed under Zorian rule, rose up in celebration, embracing their newfound freedom. The war was over. The Zorian Empire, the scourge of the galaxy for centuries, had been brought to its knees. In its place, a new order was rising, one founded on the principles of cooperation and self-determination. For Earth and its allies, the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, the sacrifices immeasurable. But as they looked out upon a galaxy transformed, they knew that their struggle had not been in vain. In the aftermath of the war, a new chapter was beginning. Earth, once a backwater planet on the fringes of the galaxy, now stood at the center of a new galactic community, and the species that had once fought as allies now looked to the future as friends, united by the bonds of shared struggle and common hope. The Zorian War had tested the mettle of humanity and its allies. It had pushed them to the brink of destruction and forced them to confront the darkest aspects of their own nature. But in the end, it was their unity, their courage, and their indomitable spirit that had triumphed. As the galaxy entered a new era of peace and cooperation, the lessons of the war would not be forgotten. The sacrifices of the fallen would be honored, their memories cherished, and the alliance forged in the fires of conflict would stand as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. The final push had been made, and the galaxy had been forever changed. A new dawn was rising, and Earth and its allies would greet it together, united in their determination to build a better future for all.